is Helene Lee. I work with Florida Bank as an Asian market. I live in Texas. And also very involved in the Chinese community. And I was the Chinese school principal for 16 years. I have a column in the Chinese newspaper, local newspapers. I've been a columnist for 14 years. And I was, the former chair of the Great Dallas Times Chamber of Commerce. I still be there, so I'm happy to be here.
My name is Gerald Bright. I've been a Richardson resident since 1994. I too am a graduate of the Richardson School District. And live in Richardson.
Did you go to Hamilton Park?
I have.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we did.
Oh, yeah. We both did.
Oh, yeah. I also have a law practice here in Richardson at the Chase Building in Beltline and 75, and I'm excited to be on this commission.
Good evening. My name is Ron Taylor. I recently retired from Blue Cross Blue Shield after 25 plus years with the company. I've been a Richardson resident since the mid to late 1970s. We lived most of that time in Richland Park, where my daughter went K through 12 in RISD, graduating from Berkner. We, about 3 years ago, moved into the Bridgewater Crossing subdevelopment here east Renner. In the panhandle of Richardson. I'm delighted to be a member here, and I did catch the mayor saying, tell us something unique about you that nobody knows, you see. And this thing. I will tell you that I was at one time the city marble champion in my elementary school. And since that time, people that have met me think I have lost all my marbles. But I was indeed a champion.
That's good.
Like I said, I'm Bob Doobie, and my parents moved to Richardson in 1961, 62. I'm not exactly sure. I'd have to go back and do the math, but I too graduated, attended RISD K through 12, and I've been very fortunate to be employed by the Richardson School District, and I'm in my 38th year of employment with the Richardson Schools, and I'm currently the athletic director for the Richardson Schools. Interesting note, after I think 43 years, Steve Mitchell, our councilman, bought my parents' home from us. And I sold that to him, and so he's turned that into their home. So it's kind of interesting. And I've had 2 children that have graduated from RISD, and now I have grandchildren in RISD. So it's wonderful to be here, part of the city, and I'm real excited to be a part of this. So thank y'all. And at this time, we'll let Mayor Laura Masca welcome everybody officially. Thank you.
Officially. Well, first and foremost, thank you in advance for serving. We couldn't be more thrilled with the group. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the process just so y'all understand how we got to this point. And then another thing I'm supposed to do is to give you an overview and tell you what your charge is. But this has been a topic of conversation for many, many years, and the need to go ahead and do a charter review. And so the council, as one of our short-term goals, when we were elected, I guess, almost 2 years ago, we certainly put it as something that we wanted to accomplish during this term. There was much discussion on how we would go about selecting the folks who would actually serve in this very important role. And I've told a couple of people that, so my start in the city was as a Parks Commissioner. And I promise you, 30 years from now, I followed Gerald, actually. I replaced Gerald when he got promoted to the CPC. But, probably 30 years from now, people may or may not know who served on the Parks Commission, but really for all perpetuity, people are going to know, although apparently we sometimes get it wrong. Who serves on this commission? And so I can't overstate your role. This is a very, very important thing, not only to the current council and to the community, but really for the future. The charter is our constitution. It is how we go about doing our business, and it has served us very well. And so we'll kind of get into the charge tonight a little bit, but so I do want you to know the importance of the role that you're playing. And it's one that we take very seriously, and we know that you will as well. And as we went about choosing the commission, we did decide that we should open it up to the entire community, and the council spent hours discussing, what makes an ideal charter commission. How do we get this right blend? And, we used this phrase, we wanted it to represent the entire community. And when you have a community of over 100,000 people, and, that becomes a pretty tall order. So we wanted it, obviously, to represent all districts. So, we've got place 1, 2, 3, and 4 well represented. We wanted to have male, female. We wanted to have an age spectrum. We wanted to have a racial spectrum. And so, you know, we really did have some pretty broad goals as to what the makeup of this particular commission would be. And we opened it up to the entire community, and I think we had 55 applicants. And, you know, and again, we had a lot of discussion about how do we go about whittling it down to a workable group of 11. And I will have to say, you know, the caliber of candidates who applied was A+. You know, we had 55 people who any single one of them was qualified to sit on this commission. And so for those who weren't selected, you know, you should know that the competition was there and that the caliber of people and the applicants was very high, which made us very happy. And so we were able to pretty quickly get it to this group. And we were just pleased once we started reviewing the applications and figuring out what the demographics and what the mix of this group was. It actually hit exactly what we wanted. And so I think that if you kind of look at your places and things like that, you will see that we did actually achieve that. So again, thank y'all so much for agreeing to serve. We are here to support you, but this is your commission. And this is, you know, us to hand to you, and it is yours to go about and do the charter review. You've got some wonderful resources at your hand. I am the staff liaison. I mean, I am not the staff. I'm the council liaison, and I won't be at the meeting. So quickly, I want to explain my role is more if you need council input. But you know, I fully believe that this will be a much more productive committee without a councilman, much less the mayor, sitting here. And so I'm here as a go-to person if you have a question, but you won't see me at all the commission meetings. So it's not that I'm not interested, but just so that we can get out of the way. And then, you know, of course, Dan, too, as our city manager, his entire team is available as a resource. But really what we realized, and I think, am I taking your stuff? You've got some very qualified people. You've got Pete Smith, our city attorney, who will be your legal counsel. You've got Amy Niemer, our city secretary, who will be the go-to gal. And then you've got Shanna Simers-Bradish out of Dan's office, who will be an excellent resource. And so, you know, we pledged to make this as thorough as we can and to give you all the resources that you need. So let's go ahead and open up your books, because I'll give you the charter in a minute. You don't want to hear me talking. You'll need to get down to work. So obviously this is a commission that was put up by the council, and so I'm going to go ahead and turn, if you, in your first tab you'll see obviously the roster, and then on page 2 you'll see under section 2 that the charge of the commission. And so I'm just going to read it, so that way I make sure that there's no misinterpretation of what the charge is. So first and foremost is to review the charter for purposes of recommending amendments as necessary to cause the charter to conform to federal and state law where conflict or inconsistencies exist. There you go. So obviously as state law changes and federal law changes, there are parts of our charter that may be out. Wow. I don't know what else words to use. Non-compliant, thank you. And so therefore, you know, obviously the first charge is to make sure that our charter does not contradict or go against state or federal law. The second thing was to review the charter for purposes of recommending amendments as necessary to clarify and condense existing charter sections to improve the effective application of the charter. And when we talk about that, you know, as you get through, there may be some consolidation, things have changed, and so it really is to kind of clean it up, make it neater, make it consistent between sections. One in particular I'll just go ahead and talk about is the one that has to do with the mayor. So obviously we know that this was a change in our charter. It was a petition, and the way that worked is exactly what the petition said is what was voted on. Well, if you look at that petition versus other pieces in the charter where it refers to the mayor, that raises some questions. You know, there were some questions. Does the mayor get to vote? Does the mayor get to do this? And so that's one example of where I can say there's some inconsistencies between pages that we would need to have cleaned up. And then to review the charter for any other provisions of the charter as the Charter Review Commission determines necessary. And, you know, again, our charge to you is to review the charter, and I know you will go through it all. And, you know, we want the cleanup. We want the compliance. You know, the manager, mayor form of government certainly is one that we've had for many, many years, and in our opinion works. But, you know, what you choose to do in the charter is up to you. You can look at each section and you will be able to provide input. So at the end of all of this, we're going to expect a report from you all. It will go to the council, and then the council will be up. It will be ultimately up to the council to determine whether or not to call the election for a charter change. Now, as I've already told you, we already know some inconsistency. Pete's going to talk to you about some legal changes, and so therefore, it's kind of a known fact. We're going to have a charter vote. And so as you look at your timeline, you'll see that everything that we're doing is to try to bring you up to the point that we can get it, the election called in such a time that it could be on the ballot. So again, that's kind of what we hope to have happen. Our absence from these meetings, and when I'm talking about the council, is not because we're not interested, it's because we're going to step aside and let you do your job. Again, we appreciate what you're doing. I know that there will be lots of people providing you with input, and that's part of your job as commissioners, to hear what residents have to say and what others have to say. And so we thank you for the time that it's going to take. And really, I personally stand here to help you in any way that I can, in addition to just showing my sincere appreciation. So that's kind of my pitch tonight. So again, we really appreciate everything that y'all are going to do. And now I'll turn it to Dana, right?
Thank you. I just, again, like the mayor, I will be here tonight and otherwise be standing by to be of service to you. Let me just embellish a little bit, and certainly getting ready to staff this as the mayor and council asked for this process to be structured, and certainly went through their important appointment and charging process. An important role too is the staffing, and certainly the city attorney, very strategic. And I would tell you that Pete Smith's background, certainly as a not staff attorney, but certainly a service attorney through an important relationship we have, also serves other cities, and I think that's at this point going to be a very powerful perspective, as Pete can offer not only his familiarity for many years with this city's history and its governance structure, but his ability to also bring points of view on behalf of how other cities do it, and candidly the experience of talk about sometimes the pros and cons of those things, if particularly get into kind of those kind of considerations. Amy Niemer also joins our city after for the last several years, but her background through other cities has been involved in supporting and staffing to the city secretary's office a charter review process as well, so she has that prior experience. Shannon Sims-Bradish, a well-regarded public administrator that we were tickled pink to also with Amy to grab a couple of years ago. Shannon, her prior experience, has staffed a charter review commission as well. So you really have in Pete, Shannon, and Amy, three folks that have had this very deliberate assignment. Shannon was very clear and quick to me that not only in their current position, but with their prior work, they were going to be well-versed to support you in that regard. We clearly understand our role in this process, and that is to be of service to you, to research the background you need to be efficient. You have an active agenda in front of you and a deadline to achieve. State law several years ago had mandated that only twice a year can elections be held, and that those uniform election dates, as they're called, really kind of cause you to kind of be on the train by a certain time, or else you kind of wait for the next one coming. And then now with those being uniform, they also sometimes can be very congested on certain times, and so I think the council really saw that they thought that November of 15 was a very not active with other ballot things, and would allow the clarity of a community to really focus, if you will, on behalf of the good work of this process and the proposition we bring forward. So I think the rhythm of the meetings and the rationale on the calendar is really driving towards you completing your work line, council to complete their review of your work, call the election, and have it timely, probably for the November of 15 ballot, and I think would find itself not in congestion with a lot of other things, and I think could allow real clarity to the community that way. I would say certainly as a daily breathing and using of a document like this is not something you put on the shelf. It is a very, very powerful and important document to us, us collectively. Certainly the council gives the exact clarity on behalf of governance, declares how power is translated in the democratic process from the people to representatives. And so you're going to be helpful in kind of reviewing that, and that's what's going to be fun, really, in a way, is you kind of really kind of get at those very essence things like that. And then quickly it moves on into many administrative facets. And let me offer you a framework that might be helpful, and that is to really think through what should be captured in the charter as the kind of constitutional framework, and what other things begin to have other processes through ordinances, policies, and other things that we see kind of on a continuum there that allow through the features of different times in the city's life and experience the ability to kind of use other techniques to finish out the details and the clarity if they support those key points. I've always found when we've talked about it, sometimes that continuum is a real important thing, and so as you go through these various sections, how detailed you need to be in those things, you need to be on a continuum, right? Clear enough that time in, time out, it must always be this way, versus other things that would say, we'll defer that to the latitudes that a council at that time might want to develop through ordinances or policy. equally directing as well, but not quite as, if you will, structured in the framework of a very not easy to change charter. So that's a continuum, and I just give you that as a framework. Through all this, we're asking for clarity, word choices and things like that that can make it clear to staff, clear to the community, and just kind of calibrate expectations. And I think really I'm excited with the mayor to have the quality of your backgrounds. I know many of you and have been personally impressed with your background's ability, and when I saw the convergence of this talent coming together here, have high regard and high comfort that we will gain from you a great outcome of this. Clearly, as you begin to move through what I'll call the administrative sections of this, if we can provide you background to kind of, everything from definitional things of how it works, Pete and certainly the key team here, but Director of Finance, if my office or myself can join you on a night, I'd be happy to do that. We're not going to presume that. We're not offended if you don't need us, but I would tell you we want to be whatever resource we can be to you to make sure that you certainly understand history and current context as you make the important decision to reaffirm or to change or whatever it might be as you make the proposition going forward. So I'll wrap up as well, but just tell you we stand by to service you and to make your time effective as we can be. And certainly we've kind of started with this room and forum, and if we need other settings, we'll certainly make those accommodations as well to make sure your steady meetings continue to be effective that way. So thank you very much, and thank you for your service.
Okay. Pete, Amy, I want to talk about history. And
First, let me just do a little bit of housekeeping. We do have coffee and water right out here, and restrooms are right out the door that you came in to the right. Women's are going to be before the stairwell, and men's will be after the stairwell. So first, let me join in welcoming all of you to this very important task. As Dan and the mayor mentioned, it can be very tedious and time-consuming. We really appreciate that you have volunteered to do this. Thank you. So we're going to talk about the history of the charter. The City of Richardson first adopted the charter in June of 1956. This in my hand is actually the real charter that was mailed to 5,000 residents back in 1956. And it was adopted 31 years and 1 day after the city was incorporated in June 1925. It has 25 chapters and 52 pages, and since then it's changed a few times, but it hasn't changed in the number of pages or chapters that much. Since then, there's been 4 charter review commissions appointed by the council. There have been 3 charter amendment elections. One was in 1989, and that was by commission recommendation. One in 2007, and that was by council action. And then the most recent one was in 2012, and that was by citizen petition. So the first charter study commission was appointed in 1960. It had 19 members, and there was no council action from that commission. The second one was appointed in 1966. There was 15 members, and again, there was no council action. The third commission was appointed in 1973, and it had 45 members. It's been on for 2 years.
2 years?
Yes.
Just so everyone could talk.
Yes. And there was no council action.
Amy, I'm sorry, can I ask a question?
Yes.
Meaning no council action because changes were not accepted, or because the council?
There were some recommendations from some of the commissions. There weren't really strong recommendations. So
Just generally then?
Yeah.
Whatever the judgment was, I guess.
Okay, so now let's talk about the elections. There have been 3 elections. The first charter amendment election was in 1989, as I stated previously. And this was a commission of 12 members. They were appointed in 1987. And their council charge was to review district boundary lines, length of council terms, staggered council terms, the direct election of the mayor, the administrative code, board and commission term limits, and council representation in the Panhandle. They were also asked to review the recommendations from the 1973 commission. That charter passed in January of 1989. The second charter commission was appointed, and that election was held in 2007. This was council-driven, based on advice of legal counsel, and there were 3 propositions passed, and these were regarding meeting locations, open meetings, and term limits. And then the most recent amendment election was in November 2012, and as we stated, that was a citizen petition, and it was, the only issue was regarding the direct election of the mayor, and this was also approved by the voters. And that brings us to the 2015 Charter Review Commission. So that's where we are. Pete, I'll let you take over.
All right, thank you, Amy. And guns up, Raiders. Do we have any Raiders here? Oh no.
Sorry.
Oh no.
That's the run, Pete. That's the
Sorry.
Anyway, I've actually been a resident for 33 years. I didn't want to say it because I don't want anybody to know how old I am. So, but so I've been here 33 years, and as Dan indicated, we represent lots of municipalities in the Metroplex, big, small, different demographics. So we have a variety of experiences to share. So I'm going to be your legal resource, and I'll make sure that everybody has my email and my cell phone before you leave tonight, because if you need a resource, you have a question, you know, I want to encourage you to go ahead and contact me so I can help you ahead of time, so we'll make productive use of your meetings when you're here. I did want to touch on the Open Meetings Act, Public Information Act. Some of you have been on boards and commissions, and so you're familiar with it. This meeting's going to be conducted Open Meetings Act. We're going to have minutes of the meeting. You're going to approve minutes. Amy's going to make sure the minutes are prepared. What I want to do is caution you that under the Open Meetings Act, your deliberations need to be here at the posted meeting. So I want to encourage you not to discuss the propositions that you talk about or the amendments outside the confines of this meeting. Now the Act says a quorum can't discuss it outside the meeting, but actually Attorney General opinions have said that numbers less than a quorum can constitute a meeting for which it has to be posted. So I caution you not to talk about it. Wait till you're here at the meeting. If you need resources or information, you know, contact Shanna or Amy or I, and we'll get that information to you. The same thing on emails. So whether you email or you text or you use semaphore or Morse code, whatever form of communication you use, the same thing applies. So keep that in mind. And if you're a social media animal, how many are a social media animal? Sure.
Yeah.
You know, I encourage you not
Dabbler.
to.
Friends on Facebook.
You say gambler too?
Dabbler.
Dabbler, okay. I want to encourage you not to
Been a
post.
lot of things, but not a gambler.
Okay. I want to encourage you not to post comments out there, because if a handful of you post comments or something on a topic we're looking at, then the public's going to get the idea and the perception that you're trying to arrive at a consensus, and you're trying to discuss and deliberate the matter outside the posted meeting. So those of you who blog or do social media, please keep those comments till after we're done with the Charter Commission and we're done. So please don't do that. If you have any questions about Open Meetings Act or what you can do or can't do, please let me know, and I'll give everybody my card, and it's got my cell phone, which is the best way to reach me. And so I look forward to spending many nights with you. Some weeks are going to be pretty painless and pretty quick as we go through sections of the charter, because there won't be a lot there. Others will be, and as the chair's going to tell you, we're going to do it by topics and subject matter to make it consistent. And so some will be filled with a lot of work, some will be not so difficult. So look forward to working with everyone.
All right, thank you, Pete. Let's talk a little bit about logistics. I've been asked to chair it. I'm not real sure I know why I was asked to chair this, but I am excited to do so. I did have the good fortune for several years to chair the Parks and Recreation Commission. It was a great opportunity, and it was a lot of fun too. I think this is a little different. It's probably a little more serious maybe, but as I say that, I surely don't want y'all to take this too seriously in the fact that you don't enjoy the process, because it is intended for us to get to know each other better, for us to feel very comfortable. Like Pete said, we can't go outside and talk about this down the street or in the hallway or over at the coffee shop or somewhere else. So it is very critical that y'all allow us to feel comfortable to interchange. And part of that means we need to play fair when we're in here. The process in which we're going to go through is we're going to open it up to a lot of discussions. We're going to come in with topics or certain portions of the charter, and that's going to be our charge that evening or during that meeting to go through and determine what we need to do, if anything. It is, remember, we are a review team. It's not that we have to make changes, and I think that's critical. I would ask that you keep all your personal agendas out of this room, and we look at it collectively. In fair play, we want all 11 people to talk. We need all 11 people to talk. We need all 11 people to speak up. If you have something else that, is all over you and you want to say something after all 11 have talked, then you can get a second turn if you so desire. But let's let everybody have a chance to speak before you speak a second time. And part of that's going to be in our best interest of time. We are going to have a lot on our plate, and we may have to at certain times say, well, we're going to have 2 meetings this month. We might have to have a 3rd meeting, or we may have to accelerate the process to accomplish our goals. So in the name of being efficient, let's try to work in here as best we can with each other. The way that we will do it is we will ask everyone to take part in the discussion. We must have a minimum of 6 people here to have a quorum. So I ask that everyone's here. I ask that everybody's here on time. Those are very important parts of us getting together. Through the discussion, after everyone has had a chance, Ron is our vice chair. Ron will be listening. If I can't be here for some reason, there are many nights in the job that I hold where I'm working a lot of nights, sometimes 5, 6 nights, but I've committed to this. I've talked to my superiors and they know I'm doing this. So this is a priority. So I'll do everything I can to be here, but there are it's possible I may not. So Ron would take over. We will do our best to try to be on the same page and to make sure we can push this forward. But as we go through a session and everyone's had an opportunity, I would ask for a motion from someone. And I would love for those motions to be cast around the room so that we get a true sampling of everyone's thoughts. I think that's critical for the purpose of why the council put us all in here. Because all of you have something that's very powerful to say, and it's very important that you are representing who you need to represent. We will have a second, and then I will ask for any further discussion. So we'll get a motion, we'll ask for a second, and then we'll look for any additional comments. And then if there are none, or after that, then we'll take a vote. We've got to have a minimum of 6 for it to pass, and then we'll go from there. And we will ask to show of hands for in favor of the motion as stated or against it, and we will tally those votes appropriately. Okay? Any questions on that? Okay. Guests are always welcome. We have 2 this evening, and we will always acknowledge those guests as we move forward. Guests are guests. They are not part of our conversation. They are not in a position where they can vote either. So we'll keep that in mind. We always have Pete to back us up here. So if we get into something and we need clarification, we can go immediately to Pete and ask for that, and maybe they can get us off high center. So that's kind of the process or rules and the format. But other than that, it ought to be pretty simple, and we ask that you feel good about those procedures as far as we follow through the process. As far as any other conduct, I already mentioned it, let's try to play nice, be respectful of each other's opinions. If you have to miss, let's talk about if you have to be absent, please call Amy prior to our meeting. That way we're not sitting here waiting for you or not knowing if you're going to come, because we may need you here for a quorum, and so we need to be able to adjust. Let me give you her office number, 972. It's on there, 744-4290. Okay. Pete addressed it, but no social media about the process or about the commission. It's very inappropriate for you to leave here and contact anyone on the city council. You may visit with Laura if you choose, because she is our liaison. But remember, we're not really wanting to talk about what took place in this room. You may ask her opinion on maybe certain things about the charter or council, but be careful about how you do that. It's inappropriate to contact the council, okay? That's really much all I have to say about the rules of conduct. I really hope that we can respect each other and follow those guidelines as best we can. The next thing on our agenda is for us to look at some potential dates for us to meet. Ron and I met with staff, and we came up with some proposed possible dates. We could take this and pass them around. Hopefully these dates will work for everybody. If not, let's talk about it. Try to avoid conflicts as best we can. Everybody get one? Everybody have one? Laura, did you get one?
Yes, we did. Thank you.
Okay. We are hoping that our next meeting could be on November 5th, which would be a public hearing, which we would invite the public to come in, share with us any thoughts, any directions, anything that they have on their mind that is specific to the charter. And at that time, we could take that input, and then we could appropriately put it into our calendar as it relates to the topics and the schedules in which we have spread out. November 5th look like it can work for everybody.
Bob, are these meetings all going to be at the same time?
Well, we need to talk about that. I'd like for y'all to give us some input on that. We're willing to do 6. We're willing to do 6:30. We can do whatever. I think we need to be sensitive of how late in the evening those meetings could go, because I think that our task is going to be heavy. I will say that, and we could have 3-hour meetings easily. So I think that it's important that you be sensitive to that piece of it. Okay.
I just have one general comment as a member of the zoning board. We do have Wednesday meetings, which there will be a conflict with some of those. And
do y'all have a specific Wednesday that y'all meet?
It's usually every third Wednesday.
ZBA?
On
ZBA is the
ZBA.
third Wednesday.
ZBA.
ZBA is third Wednesday.
Okay, and are any of these third Wednesdays?
Some of them
Some of them
It looks
are.
like
we
the,
moved
the
several
17th
of them.
is.
December 17th?
You have a standing meeting each time, or just as needed?
As needed.
Okay.
Okay.
It's as, for him, it's as needed, so that might not be a conflict.
It's doable.
Yeah.
It's a heads up for now, sure, for what suggestions.
In that same vein, the library board meets on the second Wednesday of every other month, and I see already at least 2 meetings that are conflicting with the library board. The November meeting, the January, I haven't even gone beyond that.
Obviously, we're going to read a lot of this ahead of time. Would it be appropriate if we do have to miss a meeting, that we, for example, Mr. Chairman, email you our thoughts so those can be shared at the meeting with the others, even though we won't be here to vote, I don't know if that's appropriate or.
I think emailing it would be appropriate. Let me check with Pete, but
Yeah,
I think we might want rather send it to Amy.
What you want to do is
instead of to
Amy,
a
right.
committee member. I think a committee member we could get in a bind there, but I think if we send it to Amy,
All right.
then she could share that with us as a collective group once we got here. I
Okay.
think that'd be more efficient.
That'll
Yes, sir.
Okay, sounds good.
I would just add, following up on are all the meetings going to be at the same time, by simply saying, generally speaking, is 6:30 a good start time for folks?
We don't want to start at 6, just in case we go later?
You know, 6:30 will be fine. I want to start at 6.
We
Yeah,
can
I'm
bring
starting
in
at
some,
6
we
as
can bring
well.
in some pizza and stuff like that, so you can
I don't know,
catch a
it could be
snack
1
while,
hour
if we start early.
Well, how long do you think we typically meet? A couple of hours?
Or 2 hours or 1 hour.
I don't know that we can predict how long it will be because of the dialogue that we have. I think that we need to be sensitive to allow everyone an opportunity to say what they want to say. And I don't want anyone to feel inhibited about that or feel like they're handcuffed a little bit. So
Then I'd like to suggest 6 o'clock, because then that gives us a little bit more leeway if we need to.
You better get used to the smell of Chinese food, because that's what I'll be eating here at the table with you all night.
sorry. Is there anyone opposed to 6 o'clock? Is that undoable? Is that something that is not manageable by anyone?
No.
Is that going to cause an issue as far as your work, or?
That'd be fine.
Well, why don't we say 6 p.m. for each meeting then?
6
Okay.
p.m. Okay.
Do we need to have an official vote on that, or is that?
You're-
Okay, we're good. Okay. Okay. Okay, 6 p.m. for each meeting.
And these meetings will be posted, so there will be, once y'all agree, this will become a public document for folks like the visitors and others who are interested. They will all be on the website. At some point, maybe Amy will talk about that. That's only, is that part of your, the public input piece of it all? Sorry, I didn't mean to disrupt that.
No, you did well. I guess I haven't heard anyone disagree with any of the dates 100%. There's possible conflicts, but can we move forward? And if we get closer to a date, like a month out or whatever, and it's possible, then we could go back, because you don't have to have it posted for 78 hours, 72 hours rather. And so we would have time to adjust as needed a month or so out if it looked like we were going to have some issues.
I'm going to have an issue on the January the 14th. That's the only date. And I think Bill had said he had an issue on that date as well. The 14th of January.
Yes,
I don't know if it's worth,
but also
Just two of us.
November 12th.
okay, because that's
I-
my only date. But I just didn't know if we wanted
If you
to
have
talk about
multiple
that.
people out, you probably will just, you don't want to push the quorum topic.
Mhm.
True.
I'm going to the 12th of November.
I'm sorry, but
I'll be out of the city on the
Yeah.
12th of November.
Mr. Chairman, I'd raise a question about the June 1st meeting. Knowing that our council is all up for election in May, when does the new council get sworn in?
In late May, such that they are fully seated and ready to receive you by
By
June
June
1st.
1st, okay.
That date is really strategic.
council.
Just
Okay.
just to let you know, the new council seated, whatever that may be, is in place, but for runoff. They were all seated
Okay.
and have been canvassed by.
It's a good point. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, it's okay if you miss a meeting. Don't feel bad, because something's gonna happen. Maybe what we can do is keep what we have right now. Everybody look at their schedules, and then at the next meeting we can come back and revisit and see if we have a meeting where we're gonna have too many people absent. Because there's always somebody's always gonna have some kind of conflict.
Everybody's good up until December 17th, is that correct?
Yes.
So why don't we, at the December 17th meeting, make sure everybody brings their calendars and let's review going forward. And then that, it can get a little closer, and we may also be able to see where we are strategically with our review. And we may be able to adjust. Can we do that? Okay. Okay. 6 p.m. start time, we've done that. As far as the public hearing, that will be November the 5th. Is there anything that we need to do in regards to that, in preparation for that as a committee? Amy?
Well, Pete, do you want to talk about how you'll send out the red lines?
Yeah. Well, the council wants us to have a, excuse me, I got a frog in my throat. Council wants us to have one public hearing. So if anybody wants to come and give you their ideas, whatever they might be, or issues of concern about the charter, and we take that all in ahead of time, so then when we go through the process, and we'll keep notes, and then we can discuss those issues at that time, so that we, because at each meeting, the public will not be recognized and won't have an opportunity to participate and discuss. And what typically has worked well is each time we'll have a reading assignment. Okay, members, you need to go out and read these articles of the charter and be prepared to discuss it at the next meeting. What we'll also do is send out a red line to you of what we think staff recommended changes. Like we know about some things that need to be corrected. And so we'll send that out to you, so you'll have that plenty of time for you to study along with your reading assignment. So when you come back in, you're ready to talk about it. And there may be sections where there's absolutely nothing wrong, there's nothing there, maybe there's a comma out. And that's one of the things we'll talk about is we'll have to have a charter proposition for everything we change on the same subject matter, for each subject matter. So that means we may not want to change every single comma or period, or may not want to change the language. If it's clear enough and it works, there's no confusion, no conflict, it might be fine. Because we don't want to have 50 propositions, because the public's going to go, what are they doing? And so the document doesn't have to be in absolute perfect English and grammar. So, but what we'll do is we'll note all those things as we go through, and then at the end of our session, what we'll do is go back and review that which we voted on to make recommendations to the council. Everybody agree that we still want to do that? Yes, okay. And then we'll look and see about how many propositions we're coming up with, and if there's not that many, then we can do things like, you know, fixing a comma or a paragraph, whatever it is, or changing a few words in there. And so each week, reading assignment, discuss that. We'll send out a red line, and then you have the ability to email or call me and say, I got a question, I don't understand this, I need some background information, and we'll get that to you. So we can make efficient, productive use of our time here. And not, because nobody likes being ambushed. So if you have a question, don't wait till you get here and go, I got this question. Because I may not know the answer, and I may not be able to look it up on my computer fast enough to get us an answer that night. So,
Pete, would it be fair to capture in summary fashion that the bulk of our effort is sort of a housekeeping effort? Is that consistent?
I would say that's a good part of your charge is housekeeping. We're going to help you identify things that need to be cleaned up, clarified, or changed because of conflict. But that doesn't mean that someone here may have an issue. Like I know was bantered about the community about staggered terms for council members, for example. That may come up. And so there may be other issues, other members may have other ideas, and when we're in that particular topic, you bring it up, and if enough are interested in talking about it, you talk about it. And if not, and they say, I'm not interested, we'll just take staggered terms. You know, anybody interested in staggered terms? Well, if it's only one person, you say, you know what, it's only one person, the rest of us are not interested in staggered terms, so let's move on to the next topic. That's typically the way it happens. That's an efficient use of your time. So, but primarily clean up, correcting, clarifying, and then addressing any issues that you bring up through the process.
Through the process of reviewing it, you will automatically, I mean, each of those topics of governance, you know, for example, the direct election of the mayor. I mean, you know, I would just say that the voters have spoken on that one, and so most likely, you know, you would have a hard time. But that could be one. It'll be something that will be discussed because you're going to review that section of the charter. And so, you know, anything that's in the charter will have to be reviewed. And I also want to make a little bit of a clarifying statement about public input. You know, public input is important, and so the council is definitely interested in having at least one public hearing. So if you all get into this and you feel that your mailboxes are blowing up or your phone's blowing up, there's nothing that precludes you from having a second public hearing. We just want to make sure that there is a process for the general public who wasn't given the opportunity to serve on this commission to provide you guys with input. There is a website. So Amy, why don't you talk about that? Because I do think that that's kind of part of it too. You know, this is going to be a very transparent process. This is going to allow input, and y'all will start hearing from people because there are folks who are very interested in parts of the charter. And so what we want to do is give you the tools and the mechanisms to be able to manage that. And part of that responsibility will certainly fall on Amy. So why don't you talk a little bit about how the website's going to work?
Okay. On the city's webpage, under the government tab, there is a section, a drop-down menu that says Charter Review Commission, and that's where all the agendas will be posted. That's where the original charter is posted. Your names are out there. We have not put your contact information out there. There's the history of the charter is on there. I think one of the council meetings where they discussed the charter is on there. And then it would be up to y'all to decide if you want to have a public input listed on that page where maybe, you know, the public could contact me with their comments and then I could present those to the chair at each meeting.
And they're certainly free to talk to citizens out there. If somebody contacts you, hey, I'm interested in that, and you certainly can come in and say, I've talked to a citizen and they're interested in doing this or concerned about that. So there is the public input process.
So we can add that to the website if y'all would like to do it that way, and we can certainly get that up there tomorrow.
I just remember when I first got on the Parks Commission, I was so surprised. I didn't think people really knew who did things. And people would stop me in the grocery store and say, hey, I know you're on the Parks Commission. Can I tell you about Pointwood Park? I was like, how do you know that I'm on the commission? So people will find you, and that's part of your job. I mean, that is part of why we appoint commissions, is y'all are the go-between between the residents and the council. And so I think you should prepare yourself for the fact that people are going to provide you with thoughts.
And I guess to clarify, the deliberation comment made earlier was kindly between each other. I think the point is a person, to build on the mayor's comment, that they come and approach you with a topic, say, no, I can't talk about it because the only thing I do is talk to each other here. I think you understood that, but certainly your chance to tell me more about that. What are you thinking, so that you can appreciate that point of view and represent it or factor it in your consideration is absolutely encouraged and welcome. So it's your extracurricular chatting among each other. So I think I want to make sure that was clear and understood. So I really think if you think about it, we certainly going to have an inaugural public hearing to certainly gain that input before you start. That's a very common thing. And then the mayor's comment is kind of like just see whether or not there's a sense that you need another one as you go along as well. We will have, can certainly with your confirmation tonight, add a comment section, input section, and let that happen. And thirdly is let them know that you are there, the roster's there, and they can make comment to you that way. For the efficiency of email, rather than emailing each one of you, I think we will certainly represent that maybe simplicity, an email contact to this person will be distributed to all or something like that. And that way can kind of maybe help your inbox management a little bit that way. Sure.
And then, Bob, if Shanna could take a minute to talk more about the public hearing location.
Right. One thing we'll need to start working on is just the notification process itself. And we'll work with our communications director to make sure we can use various mediums to get that word out. One thing for the commission to think about is what room or location would be preferred for that public hearing. You're certainly welcome to use this room. If you would like a bigger room, unfortunately, on the November 5th date, our Civic Center is already rented, but certainly there is a large meeting room in the basement of the library that's available. Or if there are other city facilities you guys are interested in, we can certainly make that work. So it's just a matter of what the preference is.
It's hard to say because you don't know how many people.
We're not sure what the
because
interest
I'm
is.
very comfortable in this room.
My expectation is that there'll be too many visitors to accommodate in this room at a public hearing. And I would actually wonder if the Richardson room wouldn't be better. If nothing else, we could televise it that night.
Richardson is not.
Read it out.
Not available on the 5th.
Okay, then the program room in the library sounds great. But I think this will be a mess. This room's already full, and we have only 2 visitors, and I would easily expect 20 or more at a public hearing.
Is the council
I
chamber
was going to say council chambers.
available?
Can we get all 11 of us?
The dais will be
seated?
a logistic problem for you all, but in that there's, you know, and even that lower, you know, the pit area there, it's kind of tricky to seat 11 in there. So that was our anxiety. Certainly the other commissions and those that you do use it, there's fewer seats. So we can study that, but I don't know that that's quite going to be effective given them. If it's important that you all be facing them to hear and watch expressions and directing their guidance and voice.
Can we use the Eisman? Any of the
Potentially.
we can check those real
Maybe
quick.
the Eisman?
Suggest the
If you
downstairs
want to kind of give us a
capacity.
hierarchy, we'll start chasing
Bank of
those.
America Hall?
Okay.
Great.
But a bigger room for sure.
Yes.
Okay.
I'd like to say, I think that people are used to coming to the city hall for public hearings. And I prefer to keep it here.
The council chamber would allow us to provide everyone equal access, and it has good acoustics in there now with the new microphones and everything. If it's not available, or if it's, you know, undesirable for some reason. But this has it has a timer as well to make sure that everybody, you know, has an equal amount of time. And
We can study seating, and we
yeah,
can
we can
certainly
certainly-
study whether or
that's
not
the
least chair,
preference.
vice
We
chair, or
can-
something like that. We can, if that's a preference, no problem.
If you guys have a little flexibility in terms of how we work out seating, we can see if we can make that work. We can certainly do research tomorrow morning and confirm if the preference is council chambers.
If that's what everyone is shooting for, I think that we can be
Okay.
flexible with seating. I mean, you could change out the type of chair and put 2 smaller chairs across, and maybe
Okay.
we could
There you
all
go.
be closer, which is fine.
Okay.
Everybody sharp.
That's right.
Time up and the meeting would be shorter.
Mr. Chairman also mentioned that, again, not knowing how many people may be there, I know one of the things that was looked at tactically, you can see here, at least in the scenario, the prospect that following receiving that input and making use of your meetings is whether or not a part B of that evening is that you actually go on either in that room or you recess on into a deliberating style or something like that that would let you go on and perhaps tackle some areas, and that's again a proposition to again make efficient. If the whole evening is very active with comments and you look at the time and it's pretty well done, and you may already be making your first call to switch down, but we at least went on, you see the grouping there with both a public input phase, but then also whether or not you need to start tackling topics.
So if you did it in the council chambers, you could recess and come back up here. That does make it pretty efficient for all of y'all.
I have a question. What if, say, at the public hearing or some other place, somebody comes up with a topic that we're not familiar with? You mentioned reference. Is there a way to get background material on?
Sure.
Yeah, educate us.
Yeah, absolutely. And remember, the public hearing is just for them to come up and express their comments and ideas, and it won't be it's not an opportunity for you to sit there and discuss or debate that with them. You let them say what they say, thank you, we'll take that in consideration, next speaker. And that's one of the things you need to think about is having a time limit for each speaker, because if you do, you need to announce it up front what the time limit is and apply it to everyone. Now, just because you're going to have homework for that night. You got work to do that night, so you don't want someone to go up talking for hours and others not have a chance to speak at all. So,
My question was more, I agree with you completely on the time limit. Say we have a section of the charter that we're not familiar with.
right.
Do we get background material on that? How do we prepare ourselves so that we come into these meetings with background?
If you'll let us know that you need some background or you need some education or some assistance on what is this really all about, because some of it's just legal gobbledygook at times. So if you let us know, then we can meet with you one-on-one, explain to you the background, give you some historical references, some other resources to help you so you can better understand. So all you got to tell us is, I need a little help here, and we'll provide the help you need.
I'll handle that.
No, you won't.
Well, you can bring in other resources. I mean, I was asked to come speak to a charter commission in another city. I mean, so, if the city doesn't have the answer, they will find someone. I can't remember what the topic was, but I went over to another city and the commission asked me questions. So, I mean, you just need to say, I need more information. I want to see what other
There are lots of, there are lots of
resources.
resources. There's
right.
lots of resources. There's lots of publications and pamphlets
Right.
out there. In fact, there's probably too much because you'll be overwhelmed by all the different ideas and information. But if you have an area that needs some assistance in, we're here to help you.
I think I heard from everybody appropriately. I think we would like to be with the city council. Sits and would adapt that seating, and
We'll figure that
then
out.
Yeah.
and we will plan to come up here to address our issues once we recess.
So posting purposes, public hearing starting at 6 p.m.
6 p.m.
Got it. And we'll work with our communications, so.
Okay. Anything else? Any comments from anybody else?
I'd like to make one, just in reference to our preparation for our duties and responsibilities, discharging appropriately. And that was in the letter that I think we all received from the city announcing our appointment, where there was reference to the fact that we had to take that video training for open record meetings, et cetera. I just want to remind folks that
If you've already taken it, you're good to go. So if you've been on a board or commission, or been on the council and you've taken that, you don't have to take it again.
And what's the deadline for that? There's a
90
deadline.
days.
90 days.
And I've already received almost everybody's. I think I'm lacking about maybe 4.
Great.
Were we supposed to send it to you, Amy?
There's a certificate number
Yeah,
that you
but
can send me.
For some reason, I was thinking of somebody else. That I
Vicky
sent to you.
Schmidt.
To Vicky.
Vicky's in my office.
Okay,
yes.
okay. I was thinking, wait a minute, I didn't send it to Amy.
That's okay.
Vicky gets Amy.
Vicky gets Amy, Amy gets Vicky. Multiple personnel.
I think the only other thing to confirm, and maybe y'all did, the public comments or the public input
Right.
on the webpage. We're going to add that.
Yes. I think
You like the single address strategy, and then
Yes.
we'll do distribution? Okay.
Yes.
We'll arrange that.
It'll come to Amy or to the city site, and
Maybe a city charter input, or maybe
Yes.
some kind of generic
That
thing.
coordinates
We'll
it.
figure that
Or
out.
would you feel more comfortable, instead of sending it out to us, that we all go online and read it? Is that more efficient? Do it at our,
I think email is fine.
okay.
I think the other thing that you need to decide is, you can ask people to fill out cards. You might want to, since your next meeting is going to be a public input, you might want to discuss right now.
The time
The
limits
time
and
limits.
the cards.
Because like at council meetings and at city planning commission, you have to fill out cards with your name and address so that everybody has records. So you might want to make sure that y'all are all in agreement on how that public hearing is going to be conducted.
What are typical time limits in other situations? 3?
3 minutes.
That's what I was thinking, 3, okay.
It's 5 minutes at the city
Council's
council.
5.
Council's
Yes.
5.
John? Yes, sir.
The process of people sending us things through email, through a consolidated site, would it be appropriate, and I guess I'm asking this question, for us or somebody to make sure that the folks that are asking the questions are identified and legitimate citizens of Richardson? Although I mean, somebody who lives outside could ask a question, but you know, there's people say a lot of things if they're anonymous, but we're in a process of taking input from citizens on what the charter means to them who are calling or writing in. So if there's some way that we can verify that these are really folks that aren't just fooling around, but are legitimately willing to say, you know, I'm, you know, so-and-so, and I live on Custer Way, and you know, here's my opinion. Is that appropriate for us to do?
Can we set that up technically?
Yes, our IT department can set that up to where the email address is required, their address is required, We can make their phone number required if you want. Their name would be required. Doesn't mean they can go in there and put in something fake, but we can make it a required field.
Okay. If that works, I mean, I'm just throwing that out there. Okay.
Going back to social media, I know some of us live in neighborhoods. I know I live in a neighborhood that's a lot more active when it comes to Facebook and things like that.
Don't want to know what's going on.
They do. Now, I think I'd be a little bit reluctant to engage too much with a person when they have a question. I'd be more than happy just to say, that's a good question. That's something that I'll bring up. But at the same time, what are your recommendations when it comes to engaging people through social media? I mean, I know it's a definite no-no to have like 2 or 3 people on this board, discussing an issue.
I mean, you could post it. While I'm on the commission, I won't be posting any comments or expressing any views or opinions while I'm serving on the commission. And, if you want to talk to me individually about your ideas, you're welcome to contact me. But I would just say, while I'm on the commission, and we're serving, I won't be posting any comments or opinions about it.
Well, and I want y'all to know, this was a very major point of conversation about the council, is the whole social media. And lots of you do writing, and lots of you do blogs, and lots of you have publications. I mean, y'all, part of why we chose you was your communications. But I will tell you that this is an important job, and if I post something out there and all of you read it, you're walking in with a bias. So if you were to say something out there, Jason, and all these other members happen to read it, then I think what we really want to do is protect the process. And so, like I said, this is a very important thing to the council that we're not all out there Facebooking. The council won't be weighing in on this stuff publicly because it just can hamper the process. And what you don't want to have happen, and I don't want to have happen, is at the end of all of this work, for somebody to pull something that you happen to put out there on Facebook and use it to discredit the whole process. Y'all are going to put a lot of time and energy into this, and so the last thing in the world you want to do, and trust me, I've been burned by what I think is just a quick answer that then, 57 comments later, I'm still digging myself out of that answer. And so I would just say, I can't emphasize it enough. It's really important that we not do that during this process. And I think that your answer is, I've agreed that during this process, I will not be deliberating. I do not want to contaminate the process. I don't want to bias there's lots of ways you can do it, but I would hit it pretty hard early, and I think people will respect that. And if they don't, they should.
Yeah.
I live in a neighborhood that's got a very active homeowners association board too. So I know exactly where you are, but I'm just saying it has more potential to hurt you than help, and to hurt the process.
With respect to the logistics of the public hearing, I'm okay with 3 or 5 minutes. I don't know if we need a motion or a vote on that tonight, or we can do it by consensus, but either one's fine with me. Speaker cards, I think, will be helpful. Unlike council meetings or CPC meetings, I don't know if we're going to have a topic, so it's kind of hard to keep that orderly. If we're going to have speaker cards, it could be speaking all over the place. I don't know if we can keep that orderly.
They'll be able to speak on
whatever
anything.
They want to talk about, right?
So just name and address is what we're looking for.
So do we need speaker cards?
I think it's a good idea to keep track, and we
Generally helps in terms of the
Right.
minutes.
I think
I'm not sure how someone's name is spelled.
we'll get some cards specially made up for that.
Right.
So.
Okay. And I'm okay with 3 or 5 minutes. Either one's fine.
And I think we need to go ahead and take some kind of action tonight about 6 p.m. and 3 or 5 minutes and having speaker cards, and if there's anything else we need to have a decision on, so that.
If I might suggest, rather than now immediately deciding 3 or 5 minutes, since we don't know how many people will want to speak, we might look at how much time we like to have the public portion of the hearing be open. If it's an hour and 20 or 30 people want to speak, then we better have it at 3 minutes or less. But if it's only 10 people want to speak, they can easily have 5 minutes apiece. And I know from watching many council meetings that sometimes it's hard to get a really good point across in even 5 minutes. So it's common, I think, in councils that the chair, with the consent of the commission, can actually set adjust the time period 3, 4, 5 minutes, whatever, based on the size of the audience. I don't think, Pete, correct me if I'm wrong, that we're required to specify. It's certainly a good idea to give people a proper expectation, but I'm thinking it would be good that we have some flexibility. If we see 40 people there, we should have the flexibility to say, oh no, we didn't mean 5 minutes, because we'd be here until the next day.
Well, I'd do it the other way. I'd say 3 minutes.
And if we
And
want to
then,
expand it.
then if you want to, hey, we only have 10 people here tonight. If you want to say, Chair, I move that we change that to 5 minutes.
Okay, I just wanted to.
I'd rather start off with that, because we'll put that
The
up.
expectation.
We'll make sure that everybody understands that they're limited to that time. Because there'll be those who want to filibuster and those who are pretty succinct in their comments. So.
And people practice with the watch. I mean, you know, we have people come before council and say, I've been practicing this, and it's going to take me 5 minutes. So,
and if we need to have more public hearings as a mayor, we can do that. The point is let's hear what they have to say, do it in an efficient way, and then get into our homework. And then if we have to have more public hearings, we can do that.
You know, I've never been to a public hearing where I didn't learn something. We have a lot of smart people that live in this city, and quite frankly, that could be one of our best meetings that we have when we get that public input. And I'd hate for them to feel crunched and not have some flexibility, so that's probably a good idea to start with 3. If somebody's on a roll, let them go ahead and complete it. But I think we're going to enjoy that meeting. I think it's going to be very good. And also, a lot of people will get up there and they'll ask questions. And we may have to follow up in some way with folks who want to know something, and rather than us, we can't answer it.
We can do that like you did at the council meetings. We'll go, you know,
You can
Amy will get
just,
back to you, or Pete will get back to you, or see him at the break, and we'll try to address those, because we can't do a Q&A because we'll never get done, and that's not the point. The point is for them to give their comments, your input, and then you go about your business.
So we're not there to answer the questions.
Right.
You're there to literally
Right.
sit on the
Right.
It's a monologue,
Right.
not a dialogue.
Got it.
So will we first provide the overview, I assume, of the mission of this committee? Is that your role?
When we open it up for that, yes, I think we will start out, give some parameters of what that night is about, and we can talk about the length and make sure everyone's filled out a card. If they haven't filled out a card, that's what I would anticipate, and then start the meeting. Is that the way you see it, Dan?
Exactly, and I think just the idea that certainly for guests that are there, there might be a little bit of background history and a few opening remarks, I think, and certainly I think that'd be appropriate.
And we can have a script for you.
Yeah, we can help
That you
script.
say, you know, this is what we're about. We're going to take public input tonight, and you're welcome up and talk. We won't be able to answer your questions, and if you have questions, we'll get staff to get back to you.
We'll
and-
mention the website, we'd suggest,
Right.
we'll put in the script a suggestion about the website, so you can continue to be aware of the meetings, and certainly the ability to provide that input in an ongoing way, et cetera. So we'll be happy. I think opening remarks and opening framework would be helpful before you then turn it to the comments.
Anybody else got any thoughts? Gerald, were you wanting to put that in a form of a
Sure,
motion
sure.
that you started out with?
I move that we require speaker cards for the public comments, and that the speakers be limited to 3 minutes with the discretion of the chair to allow more if there are fewer guests and we have a lot of time.
Okay.
And
I'll second.
And 6 p.m. for meeting?
6 p.m. for the meeting start.
6 p.m.
That's
start
part of
time.
that motion, yes.
Okay, we got a second by Bill. Okay, any further discussion?
Just
Kim?
one, I'm sorry, no.
Kim?
Is it appropriate to set a finite amount of time for the public hearing? I mean, we never did in the district, but I don't.
I would say not, because, I mean, the way we'll post the meeting notice will be public hearing, and then the regular meeting of the Charter Commission immediately following the public hearing. Because we don't want to, like somebody
You don't
mentioned,
have
we
to
don't want to
tell
make feel like they only have a limited amount of time. And so that's why it's important to have a limit on the speakers and make sure we manage that time. Because we don't want to have, 5 to 10 people take us on a road for 2 hours.
Maybe I didn't ask my question right. Is it proper for the public hearing to last a finite amount of time? In other words, if we
Nope.
allow people 3 minutes, then and we're setting it for an hour, then 20 people get to talk.
We'll let them talk as long, whatever amount.
So the answer is no.
Yeah, the answer is no, okay.
Thank you.
Because then what we'll do is immediately after we finish the public hearing, nobody else is here to speak, we've heard everybody, now we're gonna recess upstairs
Okay.
to do our regular meeting.
If you pull into the parking lot and there's 300 cars out here, go home and get your jammies.
Okay, we have a motion on the table. We have a second. Thank you for your comments. Anybody else have any more comments? Okay, show of hands, all in favor? Okay, opposed? All right, seeing none, passes unanimously. 6 o'clock on the 5th. Okay. According to my notes, this meeting is up for someone to make a motion to adjourn unless we have somebody else that has an item that they would like to bring forward. Nancy?
Just a point of
Yes,
clarification.
ma'am.
I should have mentioned this during that motion, but it will be at the city council chamber.
In the chamber. Yes, ma'am. Anything else? All right. Should someone make a motion to
So
adjourn?
moved.
Nancy, you got a second? John, any comments? All in favor, adjournment? Passes unanimously. Thank y'all very much. We're done.
Thank you.
We'll see you on the 5th.